we'll be covering today is career in construction, and we have 5 lovely panelists here with us. So on the left of your screen, as you can see, we have Amelia. Amelia, she is a design coordinator at ADCO Constructions. Amelia, you graduated from an architectural degree, and now you're working as a design coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit what a design coordinator is?
Sure. So design coordinator is a supporting role for the design manager. And to explain what a design manager is someone who kind of looks after all the processes that involve design. So whether that's structural, civil, architectural, services, and is kind of that middleman that really helps bring the whole project together and on the same page.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amelia. And Boston, you are a final year construction management student and also working as a undergraduate at CPB Contractors. Now, you are a proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander man. And this undergraduate position in CPB, can you tell us about it, on studying, working at the same time, and what do you actually do when you're working?
Yeah, so I found my way into construction through an Indigenous internship program, and they placed me with CPB Contractors almost 3 years ago. And, took it with both hands and ran with it. Gained exposure in some pretty big projects. And then studying and working full-time is challenging at times, but it's also pretty good because you're always learning. When you're at work and at uni, you can use them transversely and transition between both uni and work pretty smoothly.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Boston. And Liam, you completed a construction management degree and has been in the industry for about 25 years since then. And
yes, yep.
I understand you are now a commercial manager for the Queensland construction business at Westpac. Could you tell us a little bit, what is a commercial manager? Do you start off as a commercial manager?
No, I started as a building cadet, as an undergraduate studying construction management, and then worked on projects as a contracts administrator, and progressed through projects as a contracts administrator until going into my current role as commercial manager. As the commercial manager, I look after all of the contracts administrators across Queensland and the Northern Territory. And in short, the commercial management function is the business side of construction. We like to think that it's all well and good to build things, but in the business of construction, we also do it with an end goal of being profitable and in a contractual sense, making sure there's happy stakeholders both on the client side and the subcontractor side.
Okay, that's big job, big task. Rae, you are a 3rd year student studying quantity surveying and also working as an undergraduate quantity surveyor at Jacob. Now, Rae is our NAWIC University Scholarship recipient in 2019 as well. But Rae, could you tell us a little bit about quantity surveyor undergraduate? What's that about? What do you do?
Yeah, so quantity surveying, there's actually lots of names that people call them. So you might hear them as cost planners or cost managers. And what they do is they're pretty much involved in the entire process of the project. So right from when it's considering its feasibility all the way to when it's being completed, and even services after that as well. So they're pretty much known for working closely with other teams like the engineering team and the design team. So yeah, they're pretty involved throughout that.
Thanks. Now, interesting you mentioned about working with the engineering team, because Genevieve, you are a civil construction engineer, aren't you?
Yes.
And you've been around you graduated for quite a number of years now, and you are now a director at Gluco Consultants, and you're providing advisory position to the infrastructure industry. Can you tell us a little bit about civil construction engineer and the others that you work with as well, and how you connected to the construction industry?
Sure. So as a civil construction engineer, we learnt about civil works on site, but also how to project manage construction projects. So we did units on scheduling and contract management as well. So that's what the graduate civil construction engineer title gets you. I went into advisory services when I graduated uni. So I help government and private clients to scope projects in the strategy space. So when it's kind of just an idea that they're having, right through to actually delivering the project. So I also do procurement, which is where we go to market to get contractors to bid for the work. And then I help out in delivery in the project management space as well. So it's kind of that full life cycle of a construction project.
So, Jen, what do you love the most about your job? It's big.
It is big. I like that I don't do the same thing over and over again. My job is quite different day to day. And I've worked on some pretty big projects. I've been lucky enough to work on some major projects that have shaped Brisbane. Living here, being born and bred here, I love Brisbane, and seeing the city change and being a part of that has been really exciting.
So, having been in the industry for a few years now, do you find it difficult to work as a female? Because after all, the proportion of males still relatively higher in the industry than female, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. There's about 12% females in construction, and that number changes depending on who you talk to. But I find there aren't a lot of females in our job, but that hasn't really been a problem for me. I find a lot of the guys on site are really supportive of everybody on site, not just our women. And you see a lot more diverse groups of people coming through studying civil and every range of engineering these days. So I think it is definitely improving out on site. And I've never personally had a conscious issue with any bias. There's unconscious bias that's threaded through the industry, but that will slowly slip away as more females and more different groups of people start to enter the industry, I'm sure.
Boston, so you work on site. Are there any female around you on the site setting?
Yeah, in the last two projects I've worked on, a tender and the Ballina upgrade, we've actually reported to two female engineers, one being a project director and the other one being a project engineer. And yeah, you do find it different reporting to a female, but at the same time, it's a lot better when you're younger because they tend to be more caring and supportive when you have a female boss rather than having a male boss. So yeah, I actually prefer reporting to females and yeah, like seeing females out and about in the construction field.
Now, I'm curious, how come you enter the construction industry? How come you selected construction management to be something you want to study?
Yeah, so originally I was going to be a carpenter. Yeah, and then I realised I didn't want to be in the tools for the rest of my life, so I thought, yeah, better go to uni. Tried it out. Uni and turned out to be a lot more enjoyable than I thought, and wasn't actually as difficult as I thought. And I guess if I didn't just, commit to uni for the first semester, I wouldn't have found out that I was capable of doing study, and then finding a field that I do really enjoy, which is construction, which I've always wanted to get into, and then finding a role that can suit me for the rest of my life.
So did you started as a carpenter yourself?
No, so I was doing carpentry work experience throughout high school. Didn't take the OP field because I didn't plan on going to university, but I did do a diploma in grade 12, which allowed me to gain entry into university. And yeah, it turned out for the best.
Right. Rae, you are also a current student as well, studying quantity surveying. Was it something similar? You did some from internship where you're at high school and then selected quantity surveying?
So I actually didn't do any prior work experience. So I actually graduated in 2017, and then from there I just applied straight into uni, and there wasn't a lot of information out there what actually is a quantity surveyor, what do they do. So it was really up to my independent research, and it seems like I made a really good choice.
Wonderful, that's good. So Does that mean, I mean, you were digging out information about quantity surveying. How do you come across, is it someone in your family from the industry?
No, so I actually didn't know anyone in industry, and no one in my family does anything remotely related to construction. So it was really, I guess, being in the university environment where I'm talking to people like people from NAWIC and the lecturers, where they really encouraged that there is a future in quantity surveying and what the possibilities could be. So I was actually initially enrolled in property economics, and then when I realized that wasn't actually the pathway that I wanted to go, and I thought that there's more opportunities in construction, so then I made the switch.
Okay, so you made a switch during your study. And Amelia, you studied architectural degree. Is it someone in your family from architect or from construction? Is that why you selected it?
No, so I don't have anyone in my family or close to me that worked in architecture or in construction. I really liked doing graphics in high school. And I guess the most obvious choice for me was like, okay, well, you go be an architect then, because that's what you get to do. And it wasn't until towards the end of my university degree I realised that there's more you can do with an architecture degree than just be an architect. And I really enjoyed the hands-on side of thing and watching things come together in life rather than the start of the concepts and everything. I really enjoyed the problem solving. And then I heard about graduate programs in the construction industry. So I decided to apply for a few of those, and I was lucky enough to get one. And I just did, the 2 years through that, and decided that I think construction's better suited for me than architecture in an architecture firm.
Okay, so you're a architect working in a construction firm.
Yeah, I was a construction, I think they called it a construction graduate. And similar to Genevieve said, you do different processes. So we had to do contracts administration, which would be similar to what Liam looks after. And then we had to do design management, site supervision, being out of site, watching the trades build and come together, service management. And I think there's a leadership component as well. So it's really good because I did get to experience kind of all phases of the construction industry before I kind of made a choice on what I think I'd like to do for, a career.
Yeah, so you mentioned contract administrator. Over the years, we've got questions from students and the parents as well asking, site engineer, do I actually have to be an engineer to be a site engineer?
I don't think so. I have personally done at a company I was at when I did this role, we called it a project coordinator, which is pretty much the same thing. So it does kind of depend on what company you're with and what they call it. But a project engineer is kind of the middleman between, I guess, the site team and the office team, and does provide that assistance and going, here's the drawings. So this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how long we have it. And they kind of manage it from that perspective. And I don't think you have to be an engineer for it. While that background knowledge probably will help, I don't think it's something you couldn't learn or teach yourself if that's where you really want to be.
So, Liam, you have been in the industry for quite a few number of years, and you've been in different roles as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about your day-to-day job?
Yes, certainly. The day-to-day, there's sort of three key areas where we like to keep our focus on the commercial side is the contractual and the financial, but also the technical aspects of project delivery. Our team of contracts administrators, nearly all of them came out of the construction management field, whether it's through QUT or any of the two or three other institutions that have a similar undergraduate program. So we have upstream, we would say, is our client-facing interactions. Downstream would be subcontractors, suppliers, and consultants. All of those interactions are governed by a contract, and each of those contracts interrelate with one another so that they all cohesively come together as the whole. So contracts management is a big part of it. The financial management is to ensure that when we're delivering projects through the subcontractors and consultants and suppliers, that we're doing that by reference to a project budget, and ensuring that we are making money for the company that we work for. So the cost management, contractual management, commercial management, those aspects of our business is what I do, and through the contracts administrators and contracts managers, and the other roles within our organisation, they sort of all mesh together to that same objective.
So, is there a particular type of person that you think would succeed in your field?
Yes, anyone who's clear thinking, a reasonably good communicator. I know a lot of the other panelists have mentioned the desired and the enjoyment they get from problem solving, because it is a lot of the analytical thinking to identify pathways for solutions that sometimes aren't immediately apparent. So anyone that is enjoying the interactions with others, and likes the logical sequencing of a whole bunch of very complicated parts that come together to produce an outcome which is a tangible and significant outcome in terms of buildings or civil infrastructure.
Yeah. Jen, I was just wondering, like, throughout your daily involvement in the industry, you've been on site, you've been meeting clients, you have dealt with the trades and also supervisor. Would you say there are certain roles more suitable for male or female than the other, like trades or professional side of things? You're shaking your head.
No. From what I've seen, gender doesn't really matter at all in construction. You can do, if you want to do a trade, that's awesome, go and do a trade. If you want to be a site leader or supervisor, go and be a site leader or supervisor. I've seen totally different walks of people in all different roles, and they all bring something completely different to their role. So I think construction's quite an interesting industry where you get a large group of people that have had a really diverse background of careers and personalities and upbringings, and we all come together, and that really diverse range of skills and opportunities that are there for them result in the really cool projects that we get to work on and the solutions that are come up with. I've said before that if I was to live in a world that was designed and built by one type of person, it would be a fairly biased space to live and work in, I think. So I'm really encouraging of lots of different diverse groups to get out there and try their hand in strategy and design and building in construction, because then we're living in a world that's much more considered of all the different types of groups that are in it. So I don't think that gender traditionally used to play a part, as you'd see, that it was really male dominated, but these days it's definitely changing.
So we hear like engineering, construction management, quantity surveying, architecture, all working in the same industry. But what are the differences? Can anyone tell me?
I think I'll jump in first, but we all work together really closely, first of all. So I think in your role in any form of construction project, we all work really closely together. So I work with architects, cost planners, estimators, designers, design engineers, and a really broad range of trades on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important to have a basic understanding of what they do across each of their professions and a respect for their role in the bigger picture as well. Yeah.
Liam, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree. Fiona, Genevieve's absolutely right. The diversity of interactions that you have with people of different skill sets is fairly fairly enjoyable. But then because there's a lot of specialists that are very good at their expertise in their specialty, they've all got to come together. And the interactions are always new and always exciting because it's never happened before. The building that we're building is the first time we've all come together in the history of people to build this building. So it is pretty exciting to see all of those people that have a common goal, common objective to build the bridge or the building or to in any other sort of civil infrastructure endeavour.
And Boston, you work with quite a few others as well, don't you?
Yeah, so working in the delivery space, you deal mostly with design engineers when you face problems, and then the labour force, and then biggest thing is probably working together as a collective. When you work individually, nothing really gets done. So having the ability to actually merge your communication skills with one another and talk in a language everyone understands, not just you, makes it a lot easier to face the issue and go forward.
Amelia, hearing a lot of this communication, working together, do you see that being the case? I mean, as a design coordinator, things are to be designed before they can build, is that right?
It depends. I think now there's a lot more contracts in the sense of design and construct. So usually that means that they have some sort of design or some sort of ideas, and then you will develop it with a team of people that will go forward and build it, and that will involve subcontractors and trades and apprentices, as well as engineers and the client and us as a managing contractor saying, this could be a better way around it, and then advisories like Genevieve and her team. So there's definitely a big communication field that you have to work within and collaborate with, and it doesn't work if you're all going to sit there and not get along and say, oh no, we don't do that. So it is a really big team effort a lot of the time.
Fantastic. Now, staying with you, Amelia, that you did mention you did some graphic or design subjects when you were in high school, is that right? So what subjects do you do when you're in high school?
So I wasn't a really big smarty pants. I didn't do any sciences. I couldn't get my head around it. I tried to do physics and I just was like, okay, well, I don't think engineering's the path for me, so I won't try and push myself into that. I really enjoyed graphics, which involved using software that's used for designing. So we used Revit and ArchiCAD, Photoshop, a little bit of Illustrator, which was a really great starting point for me to go into university because they were all programs that I developed further. I did Maths A, I did English, I think I did business as well. I just did subjects I really enjoyed. I got the OP I needed, so that was great. But I definitely think it's important to remember while you're at high school that there is always a path to get into what you want to do. And similar to what Rae said, you can start with one thing and go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and you can change. So I think it's important to do subjects that you enjoy and that, you are relatively good at, and don't push yourself into things you think you should be doing just for the sake of it.
Well, speaking of Rae, so Rae, what subjects do you study in high school before you decide to select the courses at uni that you want to study?
Yeah, so I did geography, English, Maths B, health education, accounting, and I don't know, I can't really remember. I think the subjects that really helped were geography, and if I had my time again, I'd probably choose an IT subject as well, because I found that if you really love working with computers, you'll probably do really well in the construction field, because it's such a useful skill. And there's, like, working with all the softwares that Amelia used, you'll continue using that throughout.
Liam, do you think a computer skill is essential to be successful in construction?
Yes and no. Nowadays, a lot of the work that we do is computer based. I don't do any drawing or documentation, so I've never had to utilise any of the skills that I acquired through high school, and I did graphics as well. But we didn't have computers back in the 90s that are quite as flash as they are today. So it was all hand drawn. It was like technical drawing, not so much design through Revit and other of those software based packages. So I've in my line of work, if you can use Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, and if you've got a pencil and a notepad and a good brain, you can get by just fine. But certainly there's a lot of within our estimating department, the quantity surveyors and the cost managers in there are all day, every day on products like Revit and Costex and other packages of a similar fashion. But I mean, yeah, it's not absolutely essential to be an IT genius, but nowadays a fair bit of all of our roles are in front of a computer.
Yeah. So I'm going to have it open to the attendees and starting to answer some of the questions that's been flowing through now as well. So I've got a question specific for you, Boston, that I'm just going to read it out. So we are a 70% Indigenous owned construction company operating in regional Victoria. They're looking for ways they can increase Indigenous participation in the industry, in the construction industry in particular. So on what platform was the Indigenous program advertised or communicated to you? And why did this program appeal to you?
Yeah, so the program I came through to enter construction was the Career Trackers Indigenous Internship Program. And originally my older brother came through it, but he studied finance at university. And then he found out about it through Indigenous units at QUT. And then most universities will have an Indigenous specific unit. So that's probably the best way to target Indigenous people at university, tertiary level, and then increasing Indigenous participation in construction on a labour hire or procurement side is probably a lot more difficult. A lot of Indigenous companies start, but then they don't really take off because they're unsure on guidance, because a lot of them don't have past experience to base it off or mentors to ask questions to when problems arise. So essentially to increase it or communicate it properly would be a big challenge. So yeah, not actually too sure how you could answer that challenge because it is a large challenge, and if it was easy to get Indigenous participation increased, I guess we wouldn't be facing
so for you, was anyone in the family from the construction industry?
Yeah, so the closest thing I had to someone working in construction was my uncle, who was a plant operator up in North Queensland. So yeah, he worked on a non-professional construction role. So he wasn't too much of a help for me. But yeah, that's why programs like Career Trackers really assist in bridging that gap between Indigenous people who don't have a family or someone they can ask in the professional construction space to enter it and build networks.
And now I've got another question which is addressing to all of you as well. It's from a career pathway coordinator. The question is, if you could go back and give when you were 15 years old, a bit of the advice, what would it be for yourself when you're back 15 years old? You're in a time machine, a TARDIS, hopping back.
I'll pop in if you like, Fiona. Mine would be to be really aware of whether you're an inside person or an outside person, but also just to understand the left brain, right brain stuff. I did all math science at school, and I inadvertently found myself studying architecture at University of Queensland straight out of school. And at that at that time that course was it was like a fine art. It was all history and theory of architecture and thinking about design. And had I done art and English, I probably would have been better engaged in the study of architecture. But to my 15-year-old self, I'd be saying, just have a think about it, son. Are you an inside person or an outside person? Have you got a bit of a bent towards the logical aspects of maths and science and the STEM subjects, or not? And follow your strengths.
Jen?
Yeah, I think that's a good response. I think just learning to be more aware of what you enjoy at school, and then don't really think about the things that you should be doing, but focus on what are the areas you enjoy, and then look for career options in those areas. So tying in the things that you love doing with potential pathways after school. So I know when I was 15, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And even when I graduated, like Rae, I started a different course before I transferred into engineering. So even in grade 12, I didn't really have a good idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't know any engineers. I didn't really know anybody in construction. My dad's a builder, but I didn't know anyone in the professional side of construction. And I didn't really know about any of the career paths I could have. So when I was 15, I had no idea that I'd be where I am today. So if I'd have just listened to what I really loved doing, I'd probably still be here, which is good. But as advice, just find what you really enjoy and stick with that. Yeah.
Well, I probably would buy some technology shares if I knew.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, Boston, you did a bit of the internship or like hands-on course at high school. So 15 years itself. What advice?
The advice I'd probably give to my 15-year-old self would be to keep as many options open as possible. Don't close yourself off from anything. And if you get the opportunity to do something, say you will, and don't say no. Pretty much, so just be a yes man. When I'm 15.
Good call.
Yeah. Rae, how about you?
So building on from Jen, just you don't have to think when you're 15, have that plan like I am going to be this. Just focus on what you like and as well figure out what you dislike. So, for example, if you like working in teams, that's really great. And if you dislike working with things that's really abstract or something that you can't see, that's not tangible, then maybe being in that abstract area isn't for you. So I think definitely just figure out what environment you also want to be in.
And Amelia, how about you? You were following what you want to do. Would you have changed any bits of it?
I mean, like I previously said, I had no idea that this was even a job until I got to my final year of uni, essentially. So I think definitely with what they said, keep your option open. If you have an opportunity to, if it's go to a university open day or a TAFE open day, or, you know, I know some of the construction companies, you know, do student days where they take students around their office and talk about things, and mentoring programs like NAWIC, taking those opportunities and seeing what they have to say. I wish I did that. I might have gone into construction management and loved it. And, you know, I think architecture has helped me, and I wouldn't change doing it, but definitely probably wish I had less of a tunnel vision and looked a bit bigger and was like, okay, what else can I do that involves all these things I like?
Now, the industry is known as long hours. Do you work particularly long hours in construction, Amelia?
I have. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I've definitely done 7 days a week for a few months and worked 14-hour days. But it's definitely a give and take. I know it's Friday today. I'll probably get to leave about 4 o'clock-ish. So that's nice. And it's definitely a give and take. And I feel you do get really involved, and usually watching the project come to life. And it's usually those really critical times where you are needing to do those hours. And because you kind of love it and you feel a sense of ownership and responsibility, and you have a team of people behind you supporting you and also working with you in those long hours, it's not as bad as it sounds. And I think in any job, I mean, my parents are medical and I've watched them do 14-hour days. You know, I've watched my friends that I studied architecture with who are in architecture firms do 14-hour days. So I think that's something you're going to probably have to bite the bullet on in whatever you do. So don't be too scared and put off by the scary thought of that.
Yeah. And Liam, I mean, you look after the whole Queensland in the commercial side. Do you work very long hours yourself?
Yeah, it is a large amount of time which is necessary for doing what we do. The difference about my job now as to what it was in the years gone by is that when you're on a project, your projects have got to start in a very defined start and finish date, and when you're on a job, you have ebbs and flows of the load through the course of the project. Like at the start, you're crazy busy, and at the end, you're crazy busy, and in the middle, you've got a bit of a steady as she goes phase for my line of work. But it'd be 5, 6, 7 hour days. It's a sort of when you're on the job you're on, and you've got to do what needs to be done to get the project over the line. However, it's reward for effort as well. The remuneration, the money in working in the industry is pretty good, and there is a bit of a correlation there between effort and outcome in terms of not just remuneration, but the satisfaction of a job well done.
So will you consider the workplace being a family-friendly place? Are you able to find your balance?
Yeah, it's good. It is definitely you because you get a little bit tunnel visioned with your project delivery. It's like when you've got an assignment due, and you know that it absolutely has to be due in tomorrow morning, and you do whatever you have to do to get it finished and hand it in on time. That sometimes can be a bit detrimental, but most employers, all employers in the industry nowadays are wanting to ensure that they're an attractive proposition for employees. So that they're very aware of ensuring that the work-life balance is there, and everybody has families and are paying off houses, and if you've got to go to a kindy Christmas party, you just go. If you've got to pick the kids up from school, you just go. So it's not like it's not a prison sentence. It's a human related industry. You've got to ensure that people are feeling engaged with the task and the employer.
Boston, is that the same case? I mean, you're studying and working at the same time. Are you coping all right?
Yeah, of course. In civil construction, particularly working on a tier 1 company on some of the biggest projects along the East Coast, you don't really have much time for anything else other than the project. So the standard days, usually 12 hours minimum, and then some days it goes up to 16 hours. But yeah, like you got to realise that if you're working a 16-hour day, 2 months time, a month time, you might be working an 11-hour day, and you look forward to working an 11-hour day, although it does sound a lot more than what the average person does work. And yeah, like Liam said, the remuneration and monetary reward is there for people that work hard, and career progression. The higher you get, usually the less demanding the hours are, although you sort of refine the amount of work you can do in those hours.
That's great. Hey, Jen, just wondering now, when you were doing your civil and construction engineering degree, you see what you have learned at uni is able to transfer over to what you're doing now? Or do you have to pick up a lot more while you're working in the industry?
No, I think the course that I studied at QUT, and it was a really good course. It was quite broad in that we did those civil design elements, so I have a really good understanding of the technical elements of a civil construction project. But then we also did subjects like scheduling, contract administration, lots of teamwork assignments, which when you're at uni, sometimes they can get quite frustrating. And I know at school the same thing, but it really does prepare you for working in really multidisciplinary teams when you graduate. So I can see why they do it. Lots of presentations and those kinds of things, which were, again, really brilliant for enhancing your communication skills. So it's all there for a reason. I think the biggest thing that I learnt through uni, but not necessarily through coursework, was the importance of networking and really building a strong network around you of people in this industry. You'll find that you'll run into the same people over and over again. It's quite a small space to be in Australia. There's quite a few specialists you'll run into again, and we all tend to kind of end up knowing each other in one way or another. So networking in this industry can be quite important, especially because when a project finishes, you'll often find workforces move around to different companies depending on where the work goes. It's quite a dynamic industry in that sense. So I found networking to be a useful skill on top of the coursework.
Mm-hmm. And Amelia, with the architectural degree, what you study and what you do now, do you find you actually pick up a lot more while you're working? Were you able to transfer what you've learned into your job?
A lot of it I was. I had a good understanding of how to read drawings and what information to look for, and what information should be on the drawings. So that was really helpful. And I know not everyone, or some people struggle with visualizing spaces in their mind before they're actually built, and that was some skill that I got relatively comfortable with, and also with presentations. Like Genevieve said, every week at uni we had to stand up and talk to our groups and our teachers and lecturers about, you know, what we're doing, what we're designing, what we're thinking. So that's pretty comfortable for me now, even though at the start it was like, oh my God, do I have to do this every week? So I think definitely that's been transferable for me into this industry. There was definitely things I had to learn, all the technical side of things of engineering, what is battering, what is I knew what rear was, but, you know, different elements that you only kind of get to know. And I was lucky. I've been really supported in not having that knowledge, and I've been able to ask those questions and get the answers I need so I can learn.
Amazing. That's great. Thank you. Now, got another question from the audience here, that long hours, do you actually get paid overtime? Yes? No?
I was going to go with a good news story about these hours. Firstly, is that I've done FIFO and I've done site work. I've been a project engineer on site, and those days are quite long, and that lifestyle is quite long. But now that I've jumped over to advisory, I can control my time a lot better. So there are different areas of the industry that if you go into, you can work shorter hours, I suppose. There are still weeks when I'm at a push to get something in, like tender documents, or during certain phases of the project, like we've discussed, where the hours are longer. But generally, because I work with government clients, they'll cap a contract at 40-hour weeks. Doesn't mean that I necessarily do a 40-hour week, but you can pull your time back a little bit. So I think if you're really conscious of wanting to work shorter days, there are different spaces within the industry you could do that. It's not across the board, but different areas of the industry to different hours. But yeah, sorry. And I think the remuneration, it's quite good, even though it's not necessarily on an hourly rate. Generally, a lot of us are salary employees, I think, so we don't get hourly rates unless you're a consultant. You often don't get paid overtime, but there may be other benefits, like being able to take time in lieu. Sometimes I've been allowed to take time in lieu, or you know, you work really late one night, you may be able to come in a little bit later the next morning. Like there's a flexibility there, that we're all people, and people with families, like people have different commitments at home, so need to be considered as well.
Yeah. So I'm a bit cautious with the time. So there's last two questions got here. What has been the most exciting part of your career so far? Boston.
Probably practical completion on the new parallel runway. That was my first project. It's pretty
Boston, what is practical completion?
Pretty much when all the works are done and the client's happy with it and happy to take ownership of it. That's pretty much PC, practical completion. And yeah, working on an iconic project that hopefully one day I'll land a plane on, but being a plane that's landed on that runway will be good.
Runway, you're talking about airport?
Yeah, so the new parallel runway at the Brisbane airport, yeah.
Fantastic. Amelia, how about you?
The same thing. I think it's really rewarding when you finish a project. I've done 3 projects I've completed. One was a casino down on the Gold Coast. That was really exciting, and I really enjoyed when we all finished it. It was a really hard effort. And then I got to do a job at the university I went to, so that was quite nice to kind of do that full circle and get to do that. So that was also a highlight for me.
Right. And Liam, what's the most exciting part of your career so far? Just have to pick one.
Pick one. Well, I was always keen to build a tall building in the CBD, in the centre of Brisbane. So my first high-rise commercial office project, seeing it finished and standing at the very, very top of that building and being able to survey the whole of Brisbane from something I felt like I built. I was a part of a team, obviously, but this is the building I built, and it's still there and it looks wonderful.
Great. And Rae, how about you so far? What's the most exciting part?
So I think when something's like a deadline's approaching, and then team camaraderie is something that I really love, and especially in the last few weeks, I've been working on a defence project. So in the Northern Territory, there's a new base redevelopment for the new jets, and there's a new runway, taxiway, and some squadron accommodation there. So yeah,
Aren't you based in Brisbane, but you're working on an a project up in NT?
Yeah. So in Jacobs, our quantity surveying team is working on that.
Yeah. Okay. So so it's interesting that you can base in a location, but actually working in a project which is thousands of kilometers away. And Jen, what's been the most exciting part of your career so far?
I was an engineer on the Legacy Way Tunnel in Brisbane here, and when it was finished, we actually had a ball, like a formal ball in the tunnel. So they bussed us all in all our formal wear. They had all these tables set up and a stage with the band and caterers down there. So we actually had it near the low point stump, so kind of the middle of the tunnel, about 300 of us sitting there in all this formal wear that had worked on the project. And it was just a really surreal feeling to be like the whole project team sitting down here in tuxedos after we just built this thing, and then seeing traffic flow through it the next week. So that was really exciting.
Well, I can hear that it's all about completing a project, and that's the best part of it. Okay, so the last bit here is if there's one bit of advice that you could give to anyone looking at career in construction or looking at changing a career into construction, what would it be? I'll start with you again, Jen.
I think it's to build for me, it's to build a really strong network so that when you do have difficult days or things do get a little bit harder, you've got that group of people around you to really pull you back up again. It's not all easy. Every day is not fun, but most of it is. And if you have that network around you that help you see that, you can get through the hard times, because it's a fairly high pressure job, then you'll be fine and you'll have a really, really enjoyable career. So I think that's my piece of advice.
Beautiful. And Boston, how about you?
It's like I said to my 15-year-old self, just be a yes man. When everything comes, just say yes, I'll do it. Take every opportunity you have, and one day it'll all pay off.
Rae?
Yeah, so pretty much exactly what Boston is saying. There's opportunities that come through like different industry bodies, like site visits and student experience days. And I'd say just when they come up, just take them, because when you get to see what's going on, then it really reinforces this is something that I want to work on, and this is the environment that I want to be in. So
fantastic. Amelia, how about you in advice?
I think ask questions. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned in my time. You're not expected to know everything, definitely at the start anyway. So if you have a question, if you don't understand something, speak up, ask it, question why we're making this choice, why we're going this way, why we're doing it at this time. And, you know, it does help your superiors as well, try to justify what they're doing. And if it doesn't sound right, you know, you can keep questioning and just grow your understanding. Make sure you learn something new every day.
And Leanne, a bit of advice?
All of the answers provided prior to this have been excellent, and I'd endorse all of them. And you've taken all of the best words that I was going to use. But I'd say be inquisitive, be energetic, grab an opportunity if it's presented, and always know that in construction, whether it's building or civil, there is a direct correlation between effort and reward. Sometimes I hear stories of people who work really, really hard and they never seem to feel like they're getting anywhere. In construction, if you work really, really hard, you can definitely see the outcome. You can see the reward for effort.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much. We are close to the 11 o'clock mark here as well. And unfortunately, we're not able to answer everyone's questions that has been posting up to us, but we will make an attempt to answering them on our social media site. So follow us on the NAWIC channel on YouTube, the one that I will show you earlier at the beginning of the session. And if you've got any more questions that you want us to float to the panelists and answer it all for you, put it on Facebook or email us directly at emcqld@nawic.com.au. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.